Taking a peek at the infotainment system inside of the Honda Prologue. This is the only infotainment screen that's available inside of the ride, and it is Google-based. In this video, I'm going to show you everything that you need to know. So the first thing is that you've got your audio mute button there, so you can push in to turn audio on or off. You've got the rocker there as well, so you can adjust volume that way. Then you've got a series of buttons along the outside. The bottom two are locked into place, so you can't adjust them. So you've got your basic button there, which is going to give you kind of a little side-by-side view. And then you've also got your home button. But if you hit this button, you've got the flexibility to be able to adjust this out. Do you want it to be your trip information, audio, Google Assistant, etc.? So you've got a slightly customizable home screen 2.0. And then the buttons along the outside here can be customized, but you've got a quick launch tray, your phone, so whether or not a phone is connected, hot button press to get to your maps or to your audio. But if you do a push and hold, that is going to let you adjust these icons out. So if you wanted them in a different position, you'd have the flexibility to do that. So you just button push and then just drag it around to any of the other positions, top or bottom. So you've got that available as an option. If there are any notifications available inside the vehicle that would show up, you can button push here in order to get to different headlamp modes. Inside of the quick launch tray, more controls, you'd have additional lights for your headlights and auto beams and things like that. But we'll dive into that one in just a second. You can toggle one pedal driving on off, and you can set it to unique levels. So you can turn it off completely or normal versus high. So when you take your foot off the accelerator, how fast do you want to slow down? And then do you want that showing on the home screen there? Then you can tap here in order to look at different profiles. You can easily add in additional profiles, and one of the benefits of having unique profiles set up is that, well, firstly, you can lock it. So you can pin protect it. I'll show you that one towards the end, but you can lock it out, which means that people can't just look around at all of your settings, but you'll be able to save all of your settings for individual people. So if multiple people were driving the vehicle, you could hop in and then select whichever profile you like. You've got your current connection level, the outside temperature, and then your current time. And then so many different options here, and let's go ahead and actually start off along the outside. So you can tap there in order to be able to get to all of your different controls. So you'll be able to adjust things out with the head-up display. So if you've got the head-up display, you can toggle it off completely. You can adjust the brightness, which I always just recommend maximum brightness. You can adjust the height, so how high or low is the head-up display sitting, and then also the rotation. So depending on how you're sitting on your seat, you can rotate it or move it up and down to make it easier for you to see. You can toggle the dome lighting on inside the vehicle, so you can easily toggle overhead lighting on or off through the screen. You can easily just tap it there instead. It's kind of a weird little feature it's got there. Your window lockout, so you can make sure that people in the back row can't use the windows. There's a hot button push to get to your camera, so you can see your 360 view along the left, your front-facing camera. You can see your top-down view, and then your side-by-side view there on top of that, so you can see what's going on beside you. Back to different views. So a lot of different options. When you're in reverse, that's where you've got your backup camera with some top-down views and things like that that are available. Straightforward. Traction control, you can toggle that on or off. The only time you really want to have it turned off is if you're in slippery, snowy conditions and you're not getting good wheel traction. You can toggle your high beams on or off this way, so auto high beams. And then you've also got your fog lights. Park assist is a little bit of a misleading term, so that's the beeping that you get as you get closer to obstacles. So you can hear that individual beep, so that lets you know if you're getting too close to obstacles. It's not like a full park assist system. Basic for windows and controls. Let's see, you've got your rear liftgate, so you can toggle that one off if you'd like to. You can have it open up or set it at a unique custom level. And you've got a manual option there too. There are a series of different options available for lights. So again, with that dome light, you can toggle fogs on or off. And then there's auto high beam. So auto high beam and then your auto mode go hand in hand together. So if the vehicle recognizes that the high beams are needed, it turns them on automatically. If somebody's oncoming, it's going to turn them off before turning them right back on again. Then if you wanted to, you could permanently lock your high beams out. So in the auto mode, you'd have the flexibility of using the left stick in order to be able to flash your high beams, but you can't permanently lock them on when you're in your headlamp mode or your auto mode. So what you'd have to do is drop into the bottom headlamp mode, and then you're going to push away to turn those high beams on, pull towards you in order to be able to turn them off. So it's pretty straightforward there. Back out into drive and park again for turning traction control on or off. There's also your blind spot system. So that lets you know if somebody's entered the blind spot on either side of the vehicle. And then different options for one pedal drive. So you'll notice a few of these controls, you can access a few different spaces. And then your universal remotes. So if you do have a garage door opener, you'd be able to add it in easily that way. Those are the basics of your controls. Next up, let's go ahead and add in a phone. And we're going to start off on the iPhone side of things. So just going to go ahead and manage phones and add new phone. Then on your device, you're just looking for, there we go, Honda to show up. It'll take a few seconds. There we go. Pin numbers match up. So let's go ahead and pair. Do you want to allow access to contacts and favorites? This is not my car, so I'm saying no to that one. But from there, you can stop here. So you're connected over Bluetooth, so you'd be able to make phone calls and you'd be able to stream audio if you'd like to. But one nice thing is that you've also got Apple CarPlay, and it's wireless. So you can just tap Use CarPlay. It is backwards compatible though, so you could use a USB Type-C cable if you'd like to. But we're just going to go ahead and enable CarPlay. That'll take a second for that to show up. Look at that. So we are now connected inside of the ride. And as of right now, you can see here, you've got your Apple CarPlay home screen. So along the outside, you've got your current, time, connection, and battery level, and then miscellaneous apps. So this one is the map that was last opened, audio application, miscellaneous app, into a little icon view there instead, or your home screen. This screen is slightly customizable. So you're always going to have the map that was opened last. There's your basic search box, the media that was last opened or last used, and then your calendar notifications. So if you've got calendar notifications coming up today that haven't passed, those would show up. But if you didn't have an upcoming notification, your search box and the media box would be stretched across the top instead. But outside of that, there's no customizing that part of the screen. You've got a series of different maps available, so Apple Maps, Google Maps, or Waze. And I'm personally a bigger fan of using Waze because as you start to drive, if there are police pulling people over, so if they set up a speed trap, people are pretty good at marking that off. If there's construction, hazards, and things like that, people are really good at giving others a heads up, and you can do the same. So if you notice a speed trap, if there's a crash, hazards, and things like that, you can give people a heads up. Hoopla is a library app, Live One's a radio app. You've got podcasts that are available that you can easily stream that way. So you've got a lot of different options that are available. CarPlay does not support video playback though. So even though I've got things like VLC on here, it's strictly going to be audio. But you've got a series of audio apps that are available. On the steering wheel, there's a voice command prompt. So if you tap the prompt, you're just going to get the Google Assistant for the screen. But if you do a long button push and hold, that is going to activate your Siri Assistant. So short button push is the assistant for the screen. Long button push is for your phone. You can hit the home icon there to get back to the home screen for the actual device. You can hit the CarPlay icon to jump back into CarPlay. And then you'd have the flexibility of customizing the screen a little bit. If you tap on settings, you can move it to driving focused. You can adjust out the wallpaper. So if you have a different look, something that speaks to you a bit more, you can change out the color scheme. And then on your device, if you go into your settings and then general and find CarPlay, find your vehicle, and you'd have a few other options. But even if you don't have these options available, let's say if CarPlay is not even working, check down in the description of this video for a little walkthrough on how you can address some common CarPlay issues and how to fix them. But from here, you can hit customize, and that's going to give you the flexibility of customizing the icon layout. So there are different icons or different apps that you want in a different position. You can do a drag and drop to customize it. Anything with a minus next to it, you can remove it from the screen. So if there's certain apps you know you're just never going to use, you can remove them from the screen. But you can also add things back in. So along the very bottom, there's a plus icon, so you can add them back in. But if you played around with the layout too much, like let's say if you've dragged things around, you don't like what you've done, on your phone, the top right side, there's a reset button. So you're just going to tap reset, reset, and that's just going to bring you back to the factory default layout there. Straightforward. Back home brings you back to the screen again. If you go into settings, connections, and then CarPlay. So you can toggle that off. So you can then just connect over Bluetooth if you'd like. As of right now, you can see that I'm connected over CarPlay, but I could tap the Bluetooth icon. So it's disconnected me from CarPlay. And then we're looking at reconnecting over Bluetooth. So you've got that available. But that's how you set up Apple devices inside of the Prologue. Setting up Android devices is the exact same process. So if you weren't on this screen, on the home screen, you can tap the phone icon, manage phones, and then hit the little plus button there. And then that's going to give you the flexibility of hopping into your phone. And then we're just looking for Honda to show up there. There we go. PIN numbers match up, so let's go ahead and pair. And it'll take a second for that to actually connect, and same idea. So you can stop here if you'd like to, but it's asking me, do I want to allow access to my contacts and messages? Not my car, so I'm saying no to that one. But you've got wireless Android Auto. You could also use a USB Type-C cable there if you'd like to, but let's just go ahead and click Enable. Okay, and then on the phone, welcome to Android Auto. Just tap Continue. Look at that. We are fully connected over Android Auto. Hitting this button brings you into a little icon view, back to this little split screen. So you've got Google Maps there. So you'd have Google Maps built into the screen and then Google Maps through Android. So you can kind of go either way if you'd like to. And then you've got your CBC News, swipe across there. Along the very bottom, you've got your icon view. There's your microphone, so you can tap that to get to the Google Assistant on your phone. And then same idea. So short button push is going to be the Google Assistant for the actual screen itself. A long button push and hold is going to be the assistant for your phone. It gets a little confusing when you're Google-based for the system and for the phone, but it's straightforward there. Along the very bottom, you've also got your maps and then some miscellaneous applications, along with your connection and battery levels. If you tap the Google Maps icon there, that's going to bring you into a full screen map. And it's got full screen pinch to zoom capabilities. And that's just something that's not available inside of the Apple side of things. So one thing that Android Auto definitely has going for it. Now on this screen, if you go to the icon view, I've got Waze installed here. But if you've got Waze installed on your Android device and it's not even showing up, check down in the description of this video for a little walkthrough on how to add it in. But you can customize the layout of these icons. So on your Android device, you're just going to search for Android Auto. You're going to go into Android Auto settings. And then from there, you've got a series of options available. We're looking for Customize Launcher. So you can see there we've got our icon layout, but you can do a push and hold if you wanted to be able to adjust any of these icons out. So if you wanted to move one up, down, etc., you'd have that flexibility. Anything with a plus next to it or that check mark, you can add it back into the screen. But it's not dynamic the same way it was on the iPhone side. So for these changes to come into effect, what you need to do, hop back home, go into your settings, connections, phone, you're going to disconnect from Android Auto. You're going to then reconnect to Android Auto. And icons, the changes that we've made there have now come into effect. So it's easy enough to be able to adjust those out. Hopping back to the home screen again, if you go into your settings and then connections, same idea, you can disconnect or completely disable Android Auto, Apple CarPlay if you'd like to, but then you can connect back over Bluetooth and you can easily switch phones that way. So if you've got multiple phones connected, you can kind of easily switch them out one way or the other. If you hit options now, you can disconnect, forget it, or have a first to connect with a different connection type. So if you wanted to be connected over CarPlay or Bluetooth, you'd have that flexibility. And then it's who gets connection priority there. So if you've got multiple phones connected, you'd have that option show up. You could either disconnect or forget the phone. So if we hit forget, it's going to remove the device. And let's forget the Galaxy on top of that. So forget, and you're set to go. But it's that easy setting up Android and iPhone devices inside of the Prologue. Next up is going to be Maps, and it is Google-based, so you can easily use pinch to zoom there. Along the outside, you can search for addresses using your voice. Same idea, button push the voice command prompt on the steering wheel to search using your voice that way. You can tap the little gear icon in order to show your satellite view versus your traditional view. There are some route options, so you can avoid highways, toll roads, ferries, things like that. You can mute out notifications. So as you're coming to an upcoming turn, do you want to get no notifications at all, just your alert, so a little ding or a heads up when you need to turn. You can change up your different perspectives this way. You can zoom in and out this way, and then searching for addresses, also straightforward. So you can search by GPS coordinates, so latitude first, longitude second. You can search for point of interest icons. So if we start looking for different things, let's look at a Tim Hortons and find one that's a bit further away. Show you why in a second. So let's tap on number 6, and you can start, if your phone is connected, you could call, or you can hit this little feller, and that's going to give you different routes that are available. So you can select between any of the available routes easily by going this way. And then when you've got the alternate route or the ideal route that you'd like to take, all you're going to do, you can just back out, hit start, and look at that. The map is going. And two great things here is that you've got your full mapping cluster view. So if that's not visible, you've got that button on the bottom right side of the steering wheel in order to show off different turn-by-turn directions or your full mapping cluster view. And then if you have the head-up display, you'd also be able to see your turn-by-turn directions right inside of the head-up display too. It's pretty neat. You could search for an additional address there. And let's say if you wanted to go to a restaurant before you went to go grab a coffee, you could find any of the options here. So just tap on one of these and add it as a stop. So you can see there, we've got Thai Delicious first, moving into Tim Hortons, and then continue. You can look here to see what route options are available, tap through, search for another address, hit this in order to be able to show off or edit your trip. So let's say maybe you wanted to grab a coffee first before going for Thai food, you'd have that flexibility. From there, if you hit the X icon, that brings you back out to the little search screen here. You can hit X, remove the next stop, or completely exit navigation. But it's that easy using Nav. So you can see there all of the addresses that you've gone to previously. One neat thing is that with Google Maps, you could hit this icon in order to sign into your Google account. The big benefit is that if you've been using your phone to search for addresses that way, it would pull up all of your previously searched for addresses. So you don't have to use it. It's just neat that that's available. I'll show you how that one works later on in the video. And then next up is media. So you can see there, AM, FM, SiriusXM, Bluetooth. If you had a USB stick with MP3s on there, if your phone was connected, you'd have all of the available sources. If you tap on any of these things, you've got AM. Let's go ahead and mute that out for a second there. You can easily change between sources along the top, so AM, FM, etc. You can tune to stations this way. You can hit this in order to tune to stations or save presets. So if you wanted to, you can easily cycle through in order to save in all of your favorited stations. So everything with a star next to it is going to be a preset that you've saved in. If you go back now, you've got all of the stations that you've saved in along the bottom. And you can see there, you've got a boatload of different options that are available. If you tap this, this is going to bring you into a series of individual sound settings. So changing out your treble, mid-range, and bass. What I'd recommend here, listen to one of your favorite songs and then start adjusting this out. What I've found so far in the Prologue, in my experience, is that the bass cranked a bit, mid-range balanced out, and treble up a point. Sounds good to me, but what I'd recommend is listen to your favorite song and adjust this out until it sounds perfect for you. You can have it driver focused, front focused, rear focused, etc. Bring it back to the middle. So you can manage your favorited stations, so all of the stations that have been saved, you can easily hit the trash icon if you wanted to be able to delete any of the stations. And then you could also do a push and hold if you wanted to be able to change up the way that the stations are sitting. So if you wanted to adjust what order they're in, you can easily adjust it out that way. If we hit back for a second here, and let's switch out to SiriusXM, because that's going to give us other options. You can see related options, play stations, you can play pause, you can hit here in order to get to all of your categories. So music, talk, sports, etc. You can tap this icon in order to get to some other basics. So tune to start, help, legal information, and then back to some additional sound settings too. Straightforward. USB would give you other options too. So if you had your USB stick with MP3s on there, strictly MP3s. You've got Bluetooth audio, so if your phone is connected, and podcasts. And one useful thing is that there are some buttons behind the steering wheel. So along the left part of the steering wheel, you could push up or down this way in order to change between all of your available presets. So if presets were saved in. And then along the right side of the steering wheel, there are a few additional buttons, and that's going to be able to adjust your volume. So you could adjust it on the top of the screen there if you'd like to. I just think it's useful that you can do it in behind the steering wheel. And that's the basics of media. Hopping back home to this screen gets you to this customizable home screen-ish to a degree. Back to the main home screen there, and then swiping across to a boatload of settings. Let's go ahead and start off with vehicle status. So this is where you're going to go to see some basic vehicle information. So if you wanted to see your tire pressure, you can see that. Your energy information, and then there's also your trip counters. Now one neat thing is that you can tap the majority of these to reset, or you can add them to the driver display. So if we tap that button now, you can see there, you've got your trip counter information. You could remove it from the display, which brings you back to just the date and time basic setup. And you can do that, add things to the display for any of these options. So if you wanted your tire pressure showing up in the display instead, you can do that. If you want your energy information, so how much you're using, I personally think the trip counter makes the most sense, but that one's going to come down to a matter of preference. And back to your home screen, you've got your Google Assistant. So you can hit it that way. You can hit the voice command prompt on the steering wheel, or you can say, hey Google, in order to activate your assistant. And that's going to give you the flexibility of being able to search for addresses. You can change stations, change songs, things like that. Like there are so many different things available. Then you've got the available Google Play Store. And one of the benefits of the Play Store is that you can sign in order to be able to download different apps. So let's go ahead and sign in with your phone. And you can do it on the car screen if you'd like to, but all we're going to do is once this pops up, it's going to bring up a QR code. Just going to scan it on your phone, and it's going to launch in, and all you have to do is sign into your Google account. And after you work through that process on your phone, so it says all set, and it's going to take a second here for you to log in. And you can see there all of these additional options available. So let's just go ahead and more and accept. And look at that. So there are a limited number of apps that are available inside of the screen, but Waze is available there. There are different fuel options, so charging options, and different stations. And then, since we're signed into the Google account here, if I hop back onto Google Maps, any address that I've searched for on my phone now would show up under Recents. Back home into charging. So this is an EV, so you can see here some basic EV settings. You can tap the button on the top right side in order to look at different options. You can see your home location. You can see different notification options that were available. So do you want to get alerts when the charge cord is unplugged, when you get a power loss, things like that. There's some fast prep charging that's available. You can precondition and set a preconditioning temperature. And then you can also set preferred charging times. So if you only wanted to charge up during certain times, you'd have that flexibility to do it. So if you hit next charge, you can figure out what you're going to charge to. General rule of thumb is you want to normally charge to 80% the majority of the time, unless you're going to be using the charge next day. If you're going to be using the charge next day for a distance trip, go to 100%, but otherwise keep yourself in the 80 to 85-ish% range, ideally 80%, just to make sure that you're getting the best possible life out of the battery. You can hit charge later too. So when you're plugged in, you can choose to either charge now. So you plug in, it'll just start charging, or you can charge later. So if you know that you're going to get cheaper electricity rates at a certain time of the day, you'd have the flexibility of setting when you're going to charge up. And then you can also toggle on preconditioning. So if you want your cabin to be set to a certain temperature, you'd have that flexibility. Very, very useful during the winter or even summer months when things get a little bit toasty outside. And then you can create a schedule. So big benefit here, if we set just a random location. There we go. And we should now have the option of, there we go, perfect. Setting our preconditioning options. So we can see there what we're going to charge up to on those days of the week, and then also set our preconditioning temperature. So on Monday to Friday at 7 o'clock a.m., we're going to walk to our car and it's going to be a nice toasty 22. You can have multiple options set up here. So if we hit save and close, we're going to create an additional schedule too. So on the weekend, maybe you go to the gym at 8 o'clock in the morning and you want it to be nice and cool there too. So you'd have that flexibility. So you can have multiple charging windows set up. If you tap on any of these charging windows now, scroll down, you can either change it if you like or delete, and that's going to delete these charging schedules. But very useful if you wanted to be able to precondition and have yourself charged up during certain times of the day, or just keep yourself charged up at any point in time. But being able to precondition is pretty useful. Now, benefit of having it preconditioned when you're plugged in is that you're not wasting battery unnecessarily, which is going to be more noticeable in the winter time compared to every other time of the year. But I think that was the basics. That's everything for using charging inside of the ride. So next up, you've got Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, which are both grayed out because I'm not connected. You can tap camera again to see all of your different views. So you'll see a lot of these things a few different places. Settings we'll get to last because there are a lot of options. There is some ambient light available inside of the ride. You can also link it to your drive mode, so it's either normal or a sport mode, but it changes up the color scheme when you do. You can adjust the brightness of the light. Looks pretty good at nighttime though. And then you can toggle ambient light off completely. There are some options for your climate. So you'll have the majority of your settings underneath the screen. So there is dual zone climate control, so you can adjust it out this way if you'd like to. The option for ventilated first row seats, heated first row seats. Do you want it going to your face feet? So you can see here, as you adjust it under the screen, it adjusts it on the screen too. You can toggle the system off adjust your fan speed and things like that. It's just that you can get to some different settings right through the screen this way. So you can adjust it out a few different ways. Nothing exciting though. Yeah, windshield face feed, it is neat that you can adjust it either way. There's a Wi-Fi hotspot available, so if you're on the road, rather than using the data plan from your phone, you can use the data plan specifically for the vehicle. Obviously requires an active connection to do. There's audio, again, getting into all of your different audio settings. You can hot button press for your maps, again, your controls there. Let's see, podcasts and then news, so that's your basics, which means that settings is next up, and so many different options. Starting off with connections, which we've already seen, so Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, your networks at home, etc. Basic vehicle settings, where you can get back into your audio settings, so your sound settings, adjusting your treble, mid-range, and bass. Teen Driver is available, which means that with one key fob in the vehicle, you can set limitations, so can't go past a certain speed, things like that. Rear seat reminder, if the second row doors were opened up and then you go to turn the vehicle off, it's going to remind you to check the back seats. Do you want to force yourself to buckle in order to be able to drive? I'm not a fan of that one. I always buckle in anyways, but you can toggle that off. Options for your climate control, I always recommend keeping at least these two. So the auto defog and defrost, keep those ones turned on. You might not want your heated seats turned on every time the vehicle starts up, and that's the same thing. So do you want your cooled seats on, yay or nay? Collision detection systems, automatic braking. So if the vehicle recognizes a potential collision, nothing will happen. It can give you an alert, or it can give you an alert and it will actively brake for you. Same idea, if it recognizes a pedestrian, it can automatically brake for you. Keep these ones enabled unless you're taking your car on a track. When you turn cruise control on off, you'd get a little notifier inside of the cluster screen. So you've got your buttons for cruise control along the top part of the screen. So when you toggle on, you can see there, but when you change between different types of cruise, it's going to give you a heads up whether you're in traditional versus adaptive cruise. But if you want a walkthrough on how the cruise control system works, check down in the description of this video. Your park assist with braking. So if you're pulling in or out of a space, if you've got the reverse or forward park sensing system, it can give you an alert. If there's potentially going to be an accident, it can brake for you. And then there's rear cross traffic braking. So as you go to back up, if somebody's coming perpendicular, so from the right or from the left side, same idea, it can automatically brake for you. And rear pedestrian alert, so you're backing up. If there's a pedestrian there, it can give you a heads up. So just basic safety settings that I do recommend you keep on. Comfort and convenience, so you've got different chime volumes. You can set different volumes there. Your rear gate, do you want to be able to open it up to a certain level? So that lift gate. You've also got a hands-free lift gate, so you can have it open and close there by swiping your foot underneath. With the reverse tilt mirror, you can have it off. You can have it so that just the driver, the passenger, or both tilt. So let's just do on for both for a second. So if we hop into reverse, you can see there at the mirrors start to tilt. That's the same. Driver, passenger side. When you go to park, they pop back up again. So you can have either of them tilt. You can turn it off so that none of them tilt. Let's see, remote mirror folding. When you go to lock the vehicle, do the mirrors automatically fold in? Do you want the vehicle to have the rain sensing wipers on? Yay, nay. And then auto wipe when you're in reverse. So if you've got your wipers going, you put yourself into reverse, it's automatically going to turn the rear wiper on for you. There are some basics for lighting. So back into ambient light again. Your vehicle locator lights. So when you go to lock the vehicle, you try to figure out where the vehicle is. It'll light up for you. And then exit lighting. So when you go to lock the vehicle, do the lamps just turn off or do they stay on for up to 2 minutes? With your door locks, do you want the vehicle to automatically lock the door? And then unlocking, do you want all doors become unlocked, just the driver's door, or do you just never want the doors to automatically unlock? From there, there's remote window operation, so you can use the key fob to roll the windows down. And then, as long as you've got the fob on you with passive door lock, you can also have the vehicle lock the doors for you as you start to walk away. You can have it come on with a horn chirp or just lock the doors for you. So let's hop outside and I'll show you how some of those ones work. All right, so again, as long as you've got the key fob on you, you're just going to start walking away from the vehicle. And after a few seconds, eventually, it's going to lock the doors for you. Once it's recognized, it takes a few seconds. There we go. That's pretty neat. From there, remote starting the vehicle is also straightforward. So to do it, you just hit the lock button and then that circle button twice. You're just going to go lock, 1, 2, And it'll take a second. There we go, saw the light there pop on. So remote start is now going. To cancel the remote start, push and hold that circle button again. You can see there, remote start's canceled. You've also got the option of using the key fob to roll the windows down. So to do it, you're just going to push and hold that unlock button twice. So you're going to go 1, 2, and hold. It's going to start rolling them all down. You can release once it starts rolling, but it's going to get all 4 windows. Now, downside though, is that you can't use the fob to roll them back up, but that's pretty useful at the same time. Seating position's an interesting one. So you've got your seat entry and exit memory. So you do have seat memory inside of the vehicle. So you just get your driver's seat set up the way that you'd like to. From there, you can hit set and then either 1 or 2 there in order for it to remember your own personal profile. But when you've got the easy entry exit memory positions, these things turned on, what it's going to do is when you go to turn the vehicle off, it's going to back the seat up in order for you to get in and out of the vehicle a little bit easier. I'm personally not a fan of that one, so I keep it off, but that's going to be a matter of preference. And then there's your transport mode. Basics for notifications. So if you get notifications available for different apps, it would give you a heads up, but you can toggle each notification off. So if you just never want to get it for certain things, you can adjust that out. Series of other apps. Most people, honestly, you're not going to need to worry about this. You can adjust your date and time. So do you prefer to be in that military time instead? So 12 versus 24-hour mode. You can select a time zone too. The only time you want to be out of auto is if you straddle a time zone and it's constantly flipping you from one time zone to the other. You can permanently lock it in to a time zone if you'd like, but I just recommend keeping it in auto. It's the same thing with the date and time. If you wanted to adjust that manually, you could, but keep it in the auto the majority of the time. With your display, you can have it permanently locked in to a day or a nighttime mode. I'm personally a bigger fan of just the auto because it automatically adjusts the brightness just depending on how bright it is outside. Your instrument cluster, you've got your speed sign. So with your speed sign recognition, do you want that showing up? Yay or nay? Your turn-by-turn graphics, so if you have an active route going, you get those turn-by-turn notifications inside of the cluster. And you could turn the display off that way. Button push to bring it to life. If you button push, same idea, that toggles the screen on or off. You can adjust some sound, so that feedback that we're getting here, the beeping, you could turn that off if you'd like to. Max volume limiter, so if you've got the radio cranked, you go to turn the vehicle off and then back on, you can have it come up at a certain level. Let's see, with your profiles, if you've got multiple people driving the vehicle, you can set that up. When you're in an individual profile, you can log in to your Google account and you can add in additional accounts or completely delete the profile too. There's privacy information, accessibility, nothing exciting under privacy. There's an ads manager here, but I've never seen any ads in any vehicle with Google operating system. It's a little concerning that it's there, but like I said, I've never run into any issues. Oh, actually, accessibility options are here for captions. Assistant and voice, you can adjust out some basic settings. Do you want to not have it listed for Hey Google? So you can toggle that off if you'd like to, and then there are some other basics. Just recommend keeping these all at a default. With security, there we go, you've got your profile lock. So you can set up either a pattern, PIN, or a password. So if you're using different profiles, you'd be able to lock out each individual profile using one of these options. So if you've got multiple people driving, or even just for basic safety information, it could be worth setting up that profile lock for your individual profile. There are some options for systems, so do you want to be in either English, French, or Spanish? Let's see, with keyboard, let's see, text-to-speech output is available there. You can change it out to different options. This gets pretty in-depth, so I just recommend keep it at the basics unless you want the voice assistant to speak faster or slower. There are measurement units available too, and these ones are pretty subtle, but either US or metric. So if you wanted to change it out, so if you're going cross-border, you can change it out to either miles or kilometers just using a simple button push, which is nice. It's the benefit of having a digital cluster. There are some reset options, so you can reset all of your vehicle settings, erase the infotainment data, so bring it back if you're selling your vehicle, bring it back to the factory defaults, and then you've got some other basics here too. There is a way for you to soft reboot the screen. I'll show you that one towards the end of the video, but you've got different reset options there. There's storage information, nothing exciting. Like I said, the majority of people are not going to need to worry about that. Updates are available too, so you can see if there are any updates that are available for the screen. And back. Down the screen, you've got dual zone climate control with all of your climate control settings. There are 2 USB Type-C charge and data transfer ports, along with a 12-volt power point. And then, if the screen's ever giving you problems, like let's say Apple CarPlay's not working, Android Auto's not working, you can't physically move anything around the screen because it's frozen up, you can do a soft screen reboot. In order to do it, along the steering wheel, you've got your answer or hang up on a phone call button. If you push down on this one, so you're just going to push down and hold, you're going to hold for about 10 to 15 seconds or so. You might not see anything pop up right away, but what's happening is we're forcing a soft reboot. So eventually, in the screen, you're going to get this message. So enter recovery mode, factory reset. You're actually not going to touch anything. You can enter recovery mode if you want to. You could do a full factory reset, or you could do nothing. And after a few seconds, you're going to notice that the screen goes blank. And it's the same thing as if you were to do a reset on your phone. So turn your phone off and back on. We're doing the exact same thing here. So that's going to solve the majority of issues that you should be having. But I know that was a heck of a lot of information. That's everything that you need to know about the infotainment system inside of the Honda Prologue. It is backwards compatible, so you could use a USB-C